Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of Which Cyber Pathway. I'm Simon Linstead, the host and founder of the InfoSec Live community. And for those of you watching in the US, it's holiday weekend for you, as it is for our guests. So a massive thanks for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. See Greg in the audience. I think Larry's in there as well, and Chimaria so far. Thanks ever so much for jumping in. This is number 3 in our new series of Which Cyber Pathway, where we're hoping to bring some clarity to those people either looking to pivot into cybersecurity or those breaking in for the first time. And to do that, we're bringing on some guests to hopefully share their past stories, their opinions, and their successes, and hopefully their failures too, to help those who are trying to break in. And I'm not going to ramble on too much today. You'll be pleased to know, Larry. And I'm going to introduce our guest, Derek, who's been on the show before, but in a different guise. It's Derek Scheller. He's a senior security consultant for Seiso. And in 2017, he retired from the US Army as a cyber network defender and worked in both defensive and offensive operations. And when he's not helping clients with their security needs, he's also a content creator and one of the ones that's inspired me to keep this channel going. And his aims to help as many people as possible enter the cybersecurity space too. And you can find him on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, and Facebook under Cyber Warrior Studios, where he posts weekly. And I'll make sure we drop that in the chat later for you to see. So quick stinger, let's bring Derek on for a chat. I don't know if I like that noise.
White noise in the background.
Yeah, good. Derek, thanks ever so much for coming on. For those that don't know you, I've given a really kind of short intro. Just give people a bit more background about who you are and where you come from, please.
Yeah, definitely. So funny enough, it's always odd because everybody talks about career transitioning. I'm one of those few people that came up in IT. So from the beginning till now, I've always done IT and cybersecurity. It's been my entire life. But when I retired out of the Army in 2017 is where things really took a turn. And the reason for that is when I got out of the Army, I had already been like loaded down with certifications. I think the only one I didn't have at the time was my OSCP and CISP. And so it was really hard because when you have a bachelor's, when you have certifications and you can't get a job, it makes it tedious. Yeah. And so, I came from building computers to working help desk, selling computers, system administration, network engineering, and administration. And then everything I've done in cybersecurity, even going to courses, I had already self-taught myself a lot of that. Yeah. I've been working with Linux and Backtrack Linux and Kali Linux and ParrotSec and all these different distributions, Ubuntu, Debian, mainly Debian distros. They're usually my favorite. But I've worked with all these in the past. And so when I got a cybersecurity job within the Army, finally, after, God knows, I think I had put 10 years into the military before they gave me my first official MOS that was cyber related. I had already been studying on my own for so many years. And so when I finally got in and went through the schoolhouse for the Army, they sit you down and you end up getting like 4 or 5 SANS certifications out of it. Well, when I got there, it was all basic stuff. So like GSEC, GCED, GCIH. To me, that was basic. And that's because to me, I had been studying it for years. Benefit of doing that is I got there and the tests were easy. The courses, I got to sit there and I used to like be able to talk to the instructor and be like, hey, I'm not understanding this, or it's not working right like it should. And I've done this before. Can you explain what's going on? Whereas other people struggled just to understand the concepts.
Yeah. And how were the instructors with explaining that? Because I know you get different levels of instructors, Derek.
Oh man, the SANS instructors were phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. There was one that aggravated me, but it wasn't because of his lack of knowledge or lack of depth. It was because the answer he gave, I didn't like. And that was when you're dealing with trying to infect a machine and trying to break into something, sometimes things just don't work the way you think they should. And so it's, hey, I'm trying to like detonate this malware and it's not working and you're telling me it should. And he literally looked at me and goes, sometimes that happens. Like, I don't know what to tell you, homie. That's how it works. And as you understand more and more about malware, and it's something I should have picked up from my time at InfoSec Institute with Keytron Evans, because when I was going through a course for my certified pen tester through IACRB, I had that same issue. I had a piece of malware that was supposed to exploit and give me root, but it had to catch a certain sector of memory. If it didn't catch it, it didn't
Yeah.
do anything. It sat there and just kept running. Like, all right, cool. I'm gonna just sit here and I'm gonna do it again and again and
Nope.
again. And
Nope.
it took like 10 times for it to work. And so I didn't like his answer of sometimes this just doesn't work. And I'm like, man, I'm like, all right. But I've always been that way. I have to know why. And
Yeah.
with computers and malware and stuff, sometimes that's the way it is. So yeah, getting those certifications, and especially when I got told I was going to be medically retired from the army, I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. I've got a bachelor's degree. I had like 5 or 6 certifications at the time because I had 3 Cisco certs, my CEH, my CPT, all my SAN certs. I was like, this is going to be a breeze. No doubt. Yeah, no, not so much. Not so much at all. It was a fight. It was a fight to get through um, the systems that scan resumes. It was a fight with everything. And then that's when I learned, especially getting out of the army, just trying to hear back about getting interviews. It's not about what you know,
No.
it's how you present yourself and how you network. A lot of it is who you know. And not necessarily know as in they're going to give you the job, know as in they're going to get you the interview. You still have to sell yourself. You still have to give them a reason to hire you. So much of us want to put things into a perspective of, oh, well, I know them, so I'm going to get the job. Nah, no, no, because we still have to sell what you're capable of. I got interviewed at Cisco Talos for being a researcher on their offensive security stuff, and they denied me. I actually got the interview because they had a keg in the office, and I said, "Oh, that'd be awesome!" Because the whole thing was, if you can hack this, you get the drink on the job. I was like, "Yes, it's money." And then I go there and got blown away by the questions they asked, and I was not a fit for that position.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been mad at them. I really do. I wish I could have been like, man, that's bull. Why does it? No, I didn't deserve it. The questions they asked, the things they wanted to know, I was like, yeah, no, mm-mm.
Yeah, but do you know what, Derek? Having that humbleness and owning the fact that you didn't have the answers for that in itself is a skill that's needed to try and break in, I think. And going back to your previous point, that the word passion and the fact that you always want to try and understand things, I think again, the other common theme from everyone I've spoken to is seems to be the ability to communicate, network, build relationships, and to have that passion and drive and real interest. They seem to be the people who succeed.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of there's a lot of hesitation in this term now, and the reason I say that is this: people equate passion to working 24/7 or
Yeah, it's not
researching
that.
24/7, and there's this whole new term of quiet quitting. And I've got to be honest, I despise when people sit here and tell you you have to do the job after you're done doing the job. If you want to make that choice for yourself and do something outside of work. So let's say you have a passion project, whether that's being a bug bounty hunter or building home automation, but it's not what you do for work. You know, you still work in cybersecurity, but you enjoy doing it in your off hours. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's taking time away from the job. Me personally, I've got a wife and 5 kids. I go outside quite frequently. I've got my own content that I
Well,
create.
just to get away from the kids like I do, or
No, actually, it's because all right, I find peace in nature.
me
So
too.
being out in the wood line, like
Oh,
I've got a
let's
huge
let's
wood
let's
line.
stick on that. Let's stick on that for two reasons. One, I see Larry made a comment about Thor's hammer. It isn't Thor's hammer, and we'll get on to what that is.
What,
Oh,
Mjolnir?
behind you is.
Yeah, I got a Mjolnir right here,
Oh,
and
sorry,
I've got
Larry,
a
I didn't see
and
that.
this one here.
I thought you meant the one in his hands. So
No, this is
I saw
Mjolnir,
I
and
saw
I
a
got a bottle opener.
post that you did, I think, last week where you're in nature. And for those that know me and watch the show, we live in the middle of farmland, in the middle of nowhere, and nature, in a way, has become a real healing thing for me. So I
Yep,
completely agree with you. I think spending time outside and getting back in touch with that is so important. So
there's a reason for that.
explain the walking stick. That's where I was going with that, Derek.
Okay, so all right, let's talk about it because I got some heat for it for a little bit from one person, but
Did you?
I ain't gonna go into the details of it. But yes, so I when I got out of the army, I have 2 degenerating discs in my neck, and I got bulging discs in my lower back, jacked up shoulders, jacked up knees. So I was, using my son's walking stick for a while for hiking that I bought him when we were in Tennessee a few years back. It's a little short, a little thin, doesn't really work for me, but it was useful.
Yeah.
But in the communities that I'm now a part of, one of my buddies does a lot of rune work and designs a lot of things for people, in the Norse culture and Norse paths. And so I got a hold of him and I said, hey, I want a new walking stick. I need a rune that does this, this, and this. And I'd love for a Mjolnir and, Tree of Life to be on, or Yggdrasil to be on there.
Yeah.
And so he was like, all right. So there's actually a rune here that is for strength and healing. There's runes underneath the wrap. There's a Mjolnir on it. And then there's the Yggdrasil tree. Here's the kicker behind it. And here's why I say being outside is so important. Even the roots of the tree go all the way down to the ground. And the reason for that is you got to ground yourself. And it comes back to peace and finding peace of mind. And as we've evolved as humans, we got away from nature. But here's the thing. And we talked about this on my show when I interviewed Dr. Nicole Flores. We talked about, stress and just being outside. And the reason for that is we're meant to be outside. We are meant to be in sunlight and be in nature and grounded and things like that.
Yeah.
And so even with all technology in the houses, and as much as I love technology, it keeps me grounded. It keeps me centered. So when I'm having a bad day, when I'm stressed out, when I'm mentally just spent, I go outside, walk in the woods, and just stand there. Like I go right into the middle of my wood line and just stand there. And I find my center, I find my peace, and I find myself grounded. And every time that people have seen pictures or imagery of me lately, since I got this especially, I take it with me just because it's just one extra piece that helps ground me. It gives me that third point of contact on the ground that just helps center me.
Do you know what? That's an amazing story. I wish I had something as insightful to tell you story-wise for that. I mean, for me, it was self-isolation. I ended up in the countryside that I absolutely hated for 6 months because my mind wasn't quiet and I was having lots of problems quieting it down. But I think it's sometimes those little steps every day, isn't it, to get new habits formed, like the exercise one. We're all very good at staying on our desktops and on our laptops all day and working, and we forget about the outside world. So I appreciate you're vaping, aren't you, as well? So that makes me feel better
Always.
now. Yeah.
I do it on my show every week.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
care.
that's all right. See, Larry's just moaning at me about it in the text. So it's not hemp, Larry. It's just like
Nah,
it's banana flavor. Honestly, it really is.
mine's just menthol. That's all I ever use.
We had
But no,
another comment in there, actually, a question from Paul
yeah,
Cummings, that whole cyberhuman initiative. Where is it?
yeah, I
So
saw
talk
that.
about your
I
time
kind of
in
missed it.
service. Let's talk about the civilian analysts you work with. How certified were they, if any?
Honestly, our analysts, when I got out, one of the companies I worked for, um, well, it was the second company I worked for out of the Army, was Presidio. I was a senior security engineer for them, helping to design Sims, and then, well, not design, but helping to set them up and give them the alarms and roles and things like that. And I got to be honest, I don't know what certifications our analysts had. I know they were damn good at their jobs. I just don't know what their certifications were because to me, it never mattered. I have never asked anyone what certifications they had unless they came to me looking for how to break in. Because if they didn't have any, then I said, okay, do you have any YouTube videos? Do you have any blogs? Do you
Well,
have
let's stick on this.
anything?
Let's stick on that because I'm saying this because I haven't got many certifications and I failed my OSCP, right?
It's okay.
So
I failed mine the first time.
I haven't done it the second time yet. I haven't studied enough anywhere near or know anywhere near enough to do that. But my point is, you see a lot of people collecting certs
Mhm.
out
I was
there,
one of them.
which is great if you show how you can apply them in relevant situations and they're actually helping you towards what you want to achieve.
Mhm.
But I do also know some people who get too focused on the books aspect of it and not focused on the hands-on aspect. So I want to talk
Ooh,
about.
we could talk about that.
Ooh, yeah. And I want to talk about when people come to you and say they want to break into cybersecurity, what's the first question that you ask them?
What have they done?
Yeah.
Quite simply, because look, I get it. Not everybody wants to be online. And you don't have to be. I mean, you could use a pseudonym or a handle or a ghostwriter to write a blog for you, as long as when somebody asks you, um, you know, what experience do you have, you can send them to that blog.
Yeah.
Now, let it be known that those in security tend to track down and figure out who everybody is if you're
Yeah.
applying to one of their jobs, because they
Yeah.
want to know that this is truly your work. But even people in college, I always recommend doing something, because unfortunately, and it is very, very unfortunate, we are no longer in a society where I could take you at face value. So the
No.
only way you're going to get hired or even looked at, 9 times out of 10, especially for entry level positions, and I hate to say this because people are going to say I'm gatekeeping or whatever. I'm not. I believe anybody can do anything. I believe you could be taught anything. I just need to know you're willing to learn. And so if you have shown nothing that shows you're willing to learn, meaning go out, watch a video on YouTube from KevTech IT support showing how to set up a lab, and then give me a blog post or a video of you setting up a lab,
Yeah.
showing me that you're willing to take what somebody else has provided you and apply it. If you are not willing to do that and show me you have the ability to learn, then when I interview you, I'm also going to find a way to test your knowledge and what you are capable of.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's going to be a hell of a lot harder because I
You
have to
don't know.
truly know whether or not you fit the role.
Yeah. Do you know we had a Seiso on a couple of weeks ago called, I think it was Adam Bricker, who,
Mm.
Adam, thank you for your help. He's coming back to me for another meeting in a couple of weeks with regards to something I want to talk about in a bit. But he was mentioning the fact of the aptitude tests that he carried out with a big portion of his students on his course for cybersecurity. And they measured lots of different things, but it was mostly around the drive, the willingness to learn, the adaptability, all the things that we keep hearing on all these debates and the ones that we think are so important, but you can't get certificates for. And I think there was like a 99% hit rate on who was successful and who wasn't, not on ability or talent, but it was those who had the drive and the adaptability to start with.
Yeah, it is very much. When I got hired, it wasn't like in my current role at Seiso. It wasn't because I came in and I had all these starts. I'm not gonna lie. I actually reached out to the hiring managers. I reached out to the owners and said, "Hey, I'm looking for work. I'm looking for a job. Do you have anything?" They said, "Apply. We'll see what happens." But I was already making a name for myself in the industry. I was already creating content and doing technical videos. I was already on LinkedIn and putting out posts and things like that. I was already doing everything. So then when it came down to the interview, oh, they were going to grill me on technical because I made claims and I better be damn well able to back them up. I
Yeah.
came there with an OSAP. I came there with a GREM, with a GCIH, with GPYC, with all these certifications. So when interview time came, you better believe I was put under fire and asked questions that I literally had to look at them and go, "What the hell are you talking about?" Because they had to dig deep on knowledge that I just no longer knew anymore because I hadn't used it in a while. But I was not unwilling to sit there and say, "I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't remember.
I think
It's
I think
been 5
Kev
years since I touched it."
Yeah, and that honesty is so important. KevTech mentioned it. Hi, Kev. Thanks for tuning in. By the way, he mentioned it in the chat earlier. So much better to be honest and say you don't know, because if you've got the willingness and the ability to learn, it doesn't matter, does it? You can apply yourself and find it out,
And
and that
that's
is
what
it's a lot of what the
that,
job is, isn't it?
that's what the entire job is,
Yeah,
especially as a consultant. Now, as you're getting into being an analyst or an engineer or a pen tester, yes, there's a lot of learning that's going to be involved, but a lot of it, very much of it comes down to what you bring initially to the table. As an entry level person in one of those fields, you could go in knowing, or you can't. You should be able to go in with absolutely no experience and just saying, "Hey, I know what this sim is, or I know what this is." Whatever the job you're applying for is, you should be able to speak on those topics. That way, someone doesn't have to teach you everything.
yeah,
It is very difficult and time consuming to take someone from knowing zero to knowing 50%, let alone getting them to be able to run on their own in the job. So I'm okay with bringing someone in with zero enterprise experience to something like an analyst role or an engineer role where they've learned on their own. But to bring them in and they have zero enterprise experience and have learned absolutely nothing, they've
it's not going
done
to happen.
nothing. then you can't. I
No.
can't bring you in if you have no IT and no cyber experience to a role, or no IT or cyber knowledge to a role that is going to require you to be able to investigate logs and tell me why this system is blowing up.
And again, there's lots of stuff you can self-learn on that.
Mhm.
Especially around the Sims. You know, most of them offer free learning platforms, or you can create your own learning platform. There's lots of them out there to go with. I was going to jump into the chat quickly because we've got loads of people watching. It must be you. It's not me. You must be very popular, Derek. I do want to make a quick comment on that and a big thank you. Actually, we breached 1,000 subscribers for the first time last Friday when we were live on the show. And do you know what? We're up to 1,480 this afternoon.
Nice.
I've got no
Nice.
idea how that's happened.
Yes. I love it. I love
maybe,
it.
maybe it's the LinkedIn algorithm. Who knows? But my 13-year-old, who's always wanted to be a YouTuber, hates me right now. So thank you, YouTube. Please keep promoting my videos. Small
Hey,
wins,
look,
mate.
I'm still
Small
trying to
wins.
promote the Cyber Queens. They dropped their new podcast tomorrow, actually,
I
and
watched
they
your one with them the other day. Actually, it was really, really good. Do you want to
uh,
while I read these questions out, do you want to do me a favor? There's a private chat in our thing here. If you can drop some links in there for your channels, what I can then do while I'm reading out these questions after that, I can then post them in the chat so people can subscribe to your stuff as well. And it did happen, Larry, because of my replay shirt. You ruined the joke as well. I've been waiting for ages. I can't even get it the right place. Waiting for ages to mention the replay joke that I don't even know where my finger is either. It's been a long day. Here we go. Let me drop these in here. So there's one. And YouTube. Yeah, so I noticed David Meese is in the audience as well. David, thank you very much for tuning in. I see you've made a very relevant comment as well. Let me bring that one up first. Hi, Simon and Derek. If we don't have experience, we must create our own experience and to break into the industry. Also, don't be afraid to reach out to hiring managers. Dave, you are the epitome of how to break into the industry. And I'm really looking forward to having you on this show because you've got to be a guest in the future, please. One of the reasons why I brought that up.
I'm looking forward to KevTech to start dropping videos on Linux, because he finally got the Linux Basics for Hackers book that I've been going through on my weekly show,
Yeah.
and he finally picked it up. So I'm waiting to start seeing how he delivers the same content.
Well, it's funny because he's here. Paul Cummings from Whole Cyberhuman Initiative is here as well. So
Mhm.
I'm just going to jump in and talk about something really quickly because I was going to do this at the end, but you might not all be here. So let me just throw this up for a moment. So I've had a couple of companies offer some funds basically to the InfoSec Live community, and I want to try and build out something worthwhile for it. So I've been doing a bit of work with some CISOs in the background and with some members of the community. And basically, we're going to be introducing within the next 3 weeks a scholarship program for people looking to upskill in cybersecurity. And notice I don't say break into cybersecurity because this isn't a set boot camp program that we're putting together. This will be a personalized pathway for individuals. So if it's someone coming from an IT background or someone who's already in cybersecurity looking to take it up to the next level, or that person fresh out of school wanting to come into the industry, we're going to work with them thanks to the support of some of our sponsors. And hopefully, if anyone's watching who wants to get involved, some more sponsors too, and put them together a part or full-time pathway in cybersecurity. And give you an idea of the assessment criteria. They can be at any level of career, basic level of IT knowledge required, but that's it. Any specialism desired is okay as well. Minimum age on entry is 18, no geographical restrictions. Those who require financial support are preferred and more likely to win a place on the scholarship. And the only other thing is you have to demonstrate a good proficiency in English and be self-motivated and driven to succeed. And the plan is to give you a dedicated career coach. We've got 15 volunteers so far within the community, and I'm throwing my hands up for help for more if anyone's up for it. A personalized roadmap through my cyberpath to help you look at what you're good at and what you could potentially be good at. Excuse me. Weekly mentoring sessions, technical training material, soft skills training, interview and CV or resume prep, networking and personal branding training, and all recommended certifications will be paid. And we're going to give away 5 of these in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Now, I'll come out with more information on how it's going to work later. But the reason I wanted to mention it now is because all of this training material that we've put together includes people who are in this chat. So KevTech, your channel is going to be our recommendation for people looking at the foundation and the IT skills. Whole Cyberhuman Initiative will hopefully get involved with some of their training for people. And I think, Derek, that there's enough resources out there for free and affordable training that we can collate and put together to help people go through without paying out $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 on a boot camp.
Oh, for sure. And that's the big thing is there is so much free training out there, so many opportunities to learn. And it's funny because people come to me a lot of the time. They're like, "Oh, I want to set up a lab or do this, that, and the third." Look, I'll be the first one to be honest with you. I have not set up an entire lab. Hence the reason my security onion videos stopped with installing. I walked you through it a little bit and did a little bit because I don't have a whole lab set up. However, you want a true walkthrough of how to set up an IT lab, go to KevTech. And
Yeah,
then what you do is then you come back to me for
yeah,
how to install Security Onion and get it to read through your network. That is how you would go about doing it. You have to use multiple sources
yeah.
because of the fact that we have multiple people doing different things. I am one of the few channels out there that covers some of the blue team stuff and not all of it. Like I said, right now I'm going through Linux basics for hackers, but I did a whole like 4 or 5 videos just on Security Onion and the MITRE Navigator and MITRE Defend. And I think there was one more. But then I'm doing this Linux basics for hackers. KevTech has so many videos on help desk and setting up a lab and doing all this other stuff. You've got people like the XSS Rat who does
Yeah,
things on pen testing and offensive security. You have all these opportunities to learn for free. So anybody who gives me the excuse of I don't have the money for that certification or for that training, I didn't say you needed that certification or that training when you can go do it for free. And then guess what? Write a blog post about it. You don't even have to put yourself out on video. Write a blog post and send me your blog, and I'll actually take a look at it. Or
yeah.
put it out on LinkedIn for us to follow along in your learning journey. You know how many amazing people I have found on LinkedIn just because they're documenting how they're going about learning through there.
Absolutely. Do you know what? It's worth bringing this up actually because Charmin's made a comment. I'm a cybersecurity graduate with no experience, and the problem is that internship requires experience and entry level requires years of experience. I think I agree, Charmin, with a lot of the roles out there, but as Derek's saying, there's a lot of stuff that you can do yourself to demonstrate what you've learned. You agree, Derek?
And the problem is not the people. Now, so, let me hold on. Let me fix that statement. The problem is we have two different levels of thought. You have people that are looking at these jobs that say 3 to 5 years experience or 2 to 3 years experience, and I'm like, I can't apply because I have no experience. But they also have not documented their learning journey and what they are actually trying to establish, which can then be turned into experience.
Experience.
But then you have people who are doing all that, but the job recs are like, oh, it has to be enterprise experience. So you have this mismatch of jobs saying experience, not directly stating what kind. So then people aren't getting interviewed. Do I believe that entry level cybersecurity should have any experience at all? Maybe at a consultant standpoint, but not at an actual hands on standpoint
No.
because there's a big difference. And so if you're going to do that, though, if you want to get that interview and get that job, start networking, start talking to these hiring managers, and don't come out there and sit and say, as soon as you talk to a hiring manager, hey, I applied. Why didn't you give me an interview or this job? No, no, no. You have to build rapport. I feel the same way about people that reach out and say, hey, I need a job, as I
I
do
get
about salespeople that come at
yeah.
me and say, hey, I offer all this product. I don't care. You know nothing about me. You have not talked to me. One of the reasons that I do actually interact with and talk to people from PlexTrack, not to blow up their spot, but Lauren Baker was on my show.
Yeah.
Before anything else,
Do you
she
know? Do you
actually
know
started.
why? Do you know? Same with me, right? So I talk about Plextrack a bit, and I haven't had another meeting with him yet, Derek. But there's two reasons.
Awesome. They're an awesome
One's
shop.
Lauren Baker. She's awesome. But
Hmm.
secondly, in San Francisco, or was it InfoSec Europe? InfoSec Europe. They gave away Lego.
Nice.
So yeah,
Yes. That'll get me every time. Give me
yeah,
Lego.
I'm in. So
But Lauren Baker actually interacts and tries to get to know you and
yes, she
understand your
does.
content and what your weak points are. So she doesn't just hit you up and be like, oh, here's this sell. Like, no, it was, hey, I love what you're doing. And it took literally probably, I don't know, I actually looked up who she worked for and was
Yeah,
like, holy hell, I truly appreciate that.
yeah,
Because she never tried to sell to me. She never once pitched PlexTrack. I reached out to her and was like, I didn't even realize you worked for them. She
no,
was like, yeah. She goes, I'm part of their sales team. I was like, can you
and you're
get me a
right.
meeting set up? And she was like, yeah, no problem. And got the meeting set up.
Yeah,
Because when people interact with you and you build that rapport, they're going to look at what you're doing. So
yeah,
this goes for sales as well as it does for finding a job because you have to sell yourself.
Yeah.
Too many people are afraid to sell themselves. They're afraid to interact with others. And I get it. We're an introverted bunch. We really are. But you have to break out of that, at least online, and network with people. Because if you don't, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what you can do. And you might as well be back in the early 90s, in the 80s, where you were applying blindly and just sending resumes to
Well,
everybody,
I think
hoping for
you
a
see
hit.
a lot of people, Derek, doing that now. Where, you know, you see posts on LinkedIn where people are sending 50 resumes out a day. If you're tailoring each one to each job and doing your research properly, which is another point I suppose we could move on to
Yeah.
next, you haven't got time to set. I mean, I'd argue 5 a day at a push if you're doing it properly.
Yeah. And LinkedIn Easy Apply has made it to where people kind of just hit and go.
Scattergun,
And look,
yeah,
I'm the first one to tell you, if you don't even look, like if you look at a job description and and what the job is going to be and you're interested in it, apply. I
yeah,
will tell you that, but your resume needs to match the job you're going for.
mm,
I'll be the first one to admit that I had one resume that literally said, I want to get into cybersecurity, coming out of the military. Here's all my certifications. And literally, I had things on there that did pertain to a job and didn't pertain to the job because I have been doing blue team, red team, and everything else. I wasn't going to sit here and say, I don't know pen testing just to get a blue team role. I
yeah,
wasn't going to sit here and not put on there that I have experience with a sim when I'm looking for a new job, even if that job has nothing to do with working on a sim.
yeah,
It was, this is who I am. I have done all these jobs so that no matter what role I go for, I have experience that matches any of those roles. If you don't have that experience, but you have the knowledge and you have key takeaways, if you are working on Linux on a regular basis and that's your daily driver, guess what? You know Linux, homie. You know how to utilize the operating system and get it to work for what you want because it is not an easy operating system to use, especially with drivers and everything else that a lot of them are rolled and you have to go on GitHub and download the right ones.
yeah,
That way you know GitHub. Guess what? Now you know how to use GitHub. You know how to do push, pull, whatever. You know Linux, you know Metasploit if you're using it just to play in a lab environment. Even if you haven't dealt with it on an enterprise level, but you've built your labs and actually utilize these tools and know the ins and outs of them, you know the damn tool.
you do.
Don't
And
be
also
afraid to say it.
sticking on a Plex track purple color. How important is it to know about being a defender and an attacker? How important is it to have knowledge on both sides? I mean, that's pretty important, I would say.
I think it is vital. And I don't think you have to do both jobs. I think you need
No,
to have an understanding. And so I've always been more of a generalist. I go probably a mile wide and an inch deep. Hence the reason I
yeah,
love this SSP because that's what it is. It's a mile wide and an inch deep.
yeah,
That's how I've always operated. I learned Metasploit. I learned wireless hacking. I learned reconning, and I learned all the technology and all the tools required to be a good pen tester. But then at the same time, one of my first jobs out of the army, like I said, was a sim engineer and a senior engineer at that. And that's because within the army, I also had the experience of working with sim tools and doing defender type stuff. So then I knew, okay, I've been help desk, I've been networking, so I know what logs these tools generate. I know what logs the operating system is going to kick out. So now I can look at a sim and say, okay, why do you have an alarm for brute force? That thing's going to trigger every time. Where's your correlation alarm for, hey, somebody was trying to break in and then they got it? So you have one account from one point failed 15 times their authentication and all of a sudden succeeded. That's a brute force to authentication. That is what you should be triggering on
yeah,
because you're going to get brute forced all day. You're going to get reconned and scanned all day if you're an enterprise. If you are not actually going out there and tuning this stuff, because I know what I'm going to do as an attacker, I know what alarms should generate. I know
yeah,
what your logs should be sending to your SIM. I know how your source should respond. But that's just because I've been doing it so long and I've worked both sides of the fence. And just from a red team perspective, if you know what logs are generating, you know how to bypass or to hide your tracks. You know how to get around systems. So it is always important that even if you're in a red team role, learn the blue team side. If you're in a blue team role, learn the red team side. That purple color, there is a reason why purple is so vital. And it is
yeah.
because it is a combination of the two and bringing those teams together and being able to communicate, hey, I just did this exploit. Did you see anything? No? Okay, let me tell you how to fix that. Let me tell you the best way to secure and get this monitoring where you need it to be.
Yeah.
If you can't give that advice, then You're spraying and praying, and you're hoping you hit something, but you have no recommendations on how to fix it and what the blue team can do to better secure their network.
Yeah, Larry's made a good comment about the spray and pray approach as well, that it tends to burn bridges with organisations compared to unique resumes tailored to specific jobs with specific organisations. And sticking on this bit, Derek's talking about tailoring your resume for each role. And if you're going for a red team role, focus on the bits around the red team, but make sure you've still got the blue team knowledge that you can show within there as well. Is that what you're saying, Derek?
Oh yeah, for sure. You
Yeah,
should. If you have that knowledge on that back end of like, hey, I've worked with logarithm, or I've utilized CrowdStrike EDR and I know how this thing operates, or this system, or whatever other company you want to look at, then you know how these systems are set up. You know how their events are going to trigger alarms. You know how difficult it could be to systematically tune and care and feed all of these things, which means as a red teamer, you're going to know the tricks of the trade to bypass it.
yeah,
CrowdStrike by far was one of the hardest EDRs I've ever tried to bypass, and in a corporate environment. Not to say it's impossible. As a pen, when you're doing a pen test, you really don't take a ton of time working out the exploits to custom work around these things. You kind of
yeah.
shoot tools at it and kind of hope it works. But it is one of the few that has kicked me out of systems, has isolated me, because the team watching it was like, you tried too many times. See you later. You're gone. And I'm like, getting
It's
on the
because they knew.
phone.
It's because they
Hey,
knew what
can
they were
you give me
looking
my
for.
access back, please? Like, I really need back in to do my job. And they're like, oh yeah, that was you. Okay, cool. Here you go. So, but knowing these things, and I got to actually play around with it and realize how good some of these tools can be. I've been and I've worked on McAfee ESM, Logarithm, different SIM vendors and SOARs, and Logarithm by far with the way they do events, it is the hardest from an engineer standpoint. It is very engineer heavy, because to do a lot of the things requires access to an actual machine that has the thick client and do all these things. Whereas McAfee is very much, you can give your analysts a lot of free reign to just do things from the web UI, whether it's build reports or custom tune alarms or whatever. That's not really built into Logarithm. But the way these work, you got to go with the pros and cons. If you have Logarithm, if you have any sim set up the right way with everything in there that should be in there, then it's just about care and feeding. It doesn't matter what the vendor is. Logarithm is great. ESM is great. QRadar is great. They all have their ups and downs, pros and cons. You just got to find what works for you and your team, and what
Yeah,
your team has the capability to learn.
I suppose that leads us on to interview prep in a way. So if you've landed an interview role with a company and say it is a blue team role, what would your first steps be once you've landed that interview?
Once I got the interview,
Yeah,
um, honestly, finding out what their software inventory is. What am I going to be working on?
yeah,
What are the systems that are going to be important to me now? And the reason I do that is in the interview itself. Now I'm going to do my research on the back end, and this is what people fail to do. You're actually interviewing the company also. So mind you, culture is very important. So are they going to fit with you? I get wife, 5 kids. I've got to be able, if something happens, to get up from my desk and leave.
yeah.
I've got to be able to do these things. Is that going to be possible in the environment you're working at? So understand the technology and the people behind it. That way you can ask your questions. But from a technology standpoint, for me, it's, are you using a SIM? Are you using XDR? Are you using EDR? Okay, what tools are you using? Because if it's not in the job description, which any intelligent company won't put it in the job description for what they're looking for, because then it means me as an attacker, I know what to bypass.
Yeah.
But I want to know, what tools are you using?
Well,
What
I
are
suppose
you?
the other way of doing that is to try and build some relationships and approach people who work there, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's something I've always done. For like, if you look at my LinkedIn connections right now, I don't know how many CEOs, CISOs, security directors, security managers, offensive security, blue team, even upwards of filmmaking and IT and everything else that I've made and networked with. Not because I'm always interacting with them, but because at some point down the line, I'm going to find them, watch every post, and want to know exactly what they have to say,
Yeah.
because it prove important to me down the long run. And it also has another benefit. because as a red teamer, a lot of times people use sock puppet accounts to go look at people's accounts or look at what's
Yeah.
going on. I don't have to do that because I'm already connected to them. Go ahead. You know I'm connected to you, so I really don't care. Like, I'm going to go through and scan profiles. I've been drinking one night and looked at people's profiles and got a message on Twitter like saying, "Hey, I'm not the only one that gets drunk and starts stalking people online." I'm like, I wasn't stalking. I was just trying to figure out if you were the same person. But yeah, that was me. He goes, "Cool, I ain't the only one." I'm like, "Yeah, that was this guy right here. I'll take full claim to that," because they had all seen, "Hey, I'm drinking tonight. Let's have a good time."
I suppose this is
And
the benefit of having a recruiter account on LinkedIn where it just says someone looked at you through LinkedIn
yeah, right.
recruiter.
Someone looked at your profile. Go ahead, put my name on there. I don't care. I like, and that's the thing is, this is where I'm different than everybody else. Is that I don't hide who I am.
No.
Everybody knows who I am, and I don't care because A, I'm not doing anything that is going to damage any company or any person,
Yeah.
and B, I like getting to know people. So I'm gonna look at people's profiles not because I'm trying to do anything shady, but because I want to see what I want to keep up with what they've been learning. Because maybe it's something I don't know yet. Take Alyssa Knight, for example, who has been doing amazing things and moving over to the film industry.
Yeah.
I'm going to reach out to her to talk about production and building value in video content and the best cameras and the best lighting and sound and things like that. Like, so as you progress through your career, you should have these connections that you can reach out to and say, "Hey, man, I'm struggling to get promoted. I want to go to like level 2 or level 3, or I want to be a CISO or a CEO or whatever," and be able to talk to these people and say, "What should I do to hit that next level?
Yeah.
What am I missing?" And if you can't do that, if you haven't developed those connections, then not only are you missing out on an opportunity to talk to some really great people, you are missing out on an opportunity to level up your career, to level up yourself as a person.
Very, very much so. I completely agree, Derek. I want to just jump on the chat quickly. Few things. Well, one in particular that I want to focus on is the whole Cyberhuman initiative. Paul mentioned earlier that their community challenge they launched last year covers off a lot of these points. And from Charmin, who was in the chat earlier, saying that they're struggling, to demonstrate not having any experience, etc. The whole Cyberhuman initiative community challenge does exactly that and is peer reviewed. And I'm going to drop a link in the chat now for their website for anyone who wants to have a look. And I know Paul, Paul's the founder of the whole Cyberhuman initiative. I know, Paul, you're looking for funding at the moment. You're doing a fundraiser, I think, as well. So if anyone wants to reach out to Paul to help with that, I'm just going to get your LinkedIn profile up, Paul. We'll drop that in as well. Can't do two things at once, being a man. So bear with me.
hey, I'm looking for funding for my Florida trip next when I go to B-side St. Pete to talk on resilience and burnout. Feel free to check out the support us link on my website.
Let's drop it in. Let's drop it in here as well. Come on, drop it in the chat. I haven't got anything
Just
actually.
saying.
My children are going back to school.
Hey, mine started last week.
Yeah, ours haven't. So our little girl goes back tomorrow, as does my 17-year-old and 13-year-old. And then next week, our 4-year-old twins start school full time. And I think my wife is more relieved than I am, as much as we love them very much, by the way. But it has been a very long summer break this
I
year, the
have
running around the house.
my youngest finally started school this year, so I finally have an empty house during the week. Finally.
How is that?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm like, yes, peace and quiet.
Yeah.
But no, on
Here.
another note, real quick though, whole cyber human initiative. Please, if you can support them, do so. And it is an amazing organization that's trying to do great things for the community. InfoSec Live, myself, Kev Tech, all these people out here. Yes, some of us are for profit, some of us are non-profit, some of us are just trying to get to the point where we can make a profit.
Yeah, I'm with you, Derek. I'm with you. You know what? And the irony of it is, I mean, I've self-funded like you have Cyber Warrior Studios. I've self-funded InfoSec Live from last year, and it hasn't. There's not been a massive financial outlay. There hasn't, but what there has been is a massive time investment, which I'm not looking for money back on, but at some point it would be nice if all of our communities could get to the point where they self-sustain and we don't have to worry about constantly chasing sponsorship all the time. But I think that's just going to be the way it is, Derek, perhaps.
I mean,
I've looked at the YouTube monetization. How disappointing is that? So we're like,
I haven't even hit that level yet.
we've got this. Well, we're this many hours away. I think within 2 weeks we should hit the threshold to join their partner program.
Lucky. I'm at
Well,
like 3,200 hours.
do you know what? But it's pointless because if you looked at the revenue you get,
Oh, I know. It just gets you that market to reach out to sponsors and say people actually watch
is
my
that what
YouTube.
it is? I thought I was
That's
just
what it
doing it
is for me.
to annoy my 13-year-old, but
Well, that too. Uh, but no, I have one sponsor that I got to email back. I just got to figure out how I'm gonna compose the email.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's one of those things. This community is great for promoting people
yeah,
and helping others get heard and get seen, if they're willing to put themselves out there. And that is one of the best things about this community. I am not going to say, and because of how busy we all are, how busy our lives are, it is very difficult to keep up with everybody's content.
yeah,
But it does not mean people don't try, and the views are there. When you look at someone like Kev Tech, who's been doing
yeah,
amazing things for God knows how many years now,
absolutely,
and then you look at what you've been building and what the bald Azure guy has done,
yeah.
and
Let's not forget Jerry.
yeah,
Big up
bearded
Jerry.
IT
Man, Jerry.
dad, and Jerry, and all these people. These communities are so
Oh,
great, and
Jax!
there's
Don't forget
so much
Jax.
you can do it.
We
Yeah,
can't forget people, Derek. Is there any we've forgotten?
look, I've probably forgot a ton of people. There's so many out there. Eric Bellardo with
But
Raisa
you know
Cyber.
what though? That just shows what this industry is about. I mean, I've only been in the industry 18 months. I think it's nearly 19 months now, and I've never known anything like it with regards to C-suite level people being humble and being prepared to give up their time. I can tell anyone out there now who hasn't worked in the financial services industry that it's nothing like that in that industry, and this industry is one of a kind, I think. And people shouldn't be scared to reach out and ask people for help because, as you rightly say, we haven't all got loads and loads of time. But if people build relationships and ask in the right way, there's so many people out there who are
Oh yeah,
prepared to help. But not if people send a message on LinkedIn saying, "Can I have a job?" Because I don't think that's.
not that. And the other one is the other big kicker for me is help me get into cyber.
Oh, there's that one.
I
Yeah,
despise that
yeah,
because that means you have done no research to understand that cybersecurity is an industry. It is not a job. It is a
yeah.
career field. Eric says it all the time on my show when the topic comes up, and it's one of those things. All right, blue or red team? Oh, I don't know. Okay, purple team? I don't know.
Just
Okay, what
cybersecurity.
what do
Yeah,
you know? And that's where the problem comes in, and that's where the problem lies, where people have done no research whatsoever. They see dollar signs and just want to get into the career field.
yeah. But that,
It
I mean,
sounds cool. It sounds sexy because I'm a hacker. So
again,
let's get to the career field.
it is, and you can earn decent money here, but there's certainly easier ways to earn money than there is in this industry. You know,
Oh, the
you've
mental health
got to have that passion.
you do, because the mental toll it takes on people because of the things you will see. Because if you were working to secure a company and a company does not want to finance that security, a lot of times it feels like you are beating your head against a wall. It feels like you're talking to a brick wall. So if you're not able to deal with these situations where sometimes it feels like a thankless job, kind of like a lot of our other career fields out there, you have to find that you have to have that love within you to keep growing and eventually move on. If you don't have that, to keep learning, to keep pushing yourself, and again, it doesn't have to be after hours. I'm not and that's why I mentioned quiet quitting, because I'm not talking about doing things when the workday is over. You should be able to research and learn on the job, or maybe an hour after, or maybe you start an hour earlier. You sit down at your computer at 7 o'clock in the morning instead of 8 to do some research and do some learning before you start, so that you can eventually move on from that job. If it is worth it for you to move up and move on or get promoted, then you'll put in the extra work to make that happen. You cannot make that happen if you're doing the same monotonous job day after day.
Do the same thing, get the same results. And the other thing, I suppose, this stat might not be right. So my American history isn't great, but it's Labor Day, isn't it today?
Yes, it is.
And Labor Day, correct me if I'm wrong, was brought in because people's average working time per day was 12 hours a day and people were dying, right? People
Mhm.
were getting worked to death. And I think it was Labor Day was brought in as a celebration that the working hours were brought down to, I think, 8 hours a day. Well,
But we're still a grind culture. We are still
right.
a
Oh,
culture of work, sun up to
this is
sundown.
the point I'm getting to, right? So You've even got a holiday day because of how important rest is. And let's talk about the importance of rest for a moment, because everything else you see on LinkedIn is about hustle, 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 right? And don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, it's important to put the effort in, but it's no good if you're doing 18 hours a day, day in, day out. You're not going to get anywhere in the long run because you'll burn out.
And not just that, but it also comes down to, are you doing it for you or are you doing it for somebody else?
Yeah.
I've talked about knowing your why and things of and all this other stuff. And mental health is very, very vital. It is okay to grind and build something that is going to do something for you later on. So
Yes.
if you are grinding after hours, not for this company that could care less if you left the job tomorrow,
No.
but for yourself to build yourself into something better, that is
Self development.
completely different
Yeah.
than grinding for a company that will replace you in a day.
Yeah.
That is where we have to separate our time and where those boundaries come in. So I grind after hours to develop content, to
Yeah.
write the script for Walk With Me, to spend time with my kids, to do all these things that's going to make me a better human and allow me to do better at my job during working hours. If I'm working after hours and I feel like I'm getting no benefit from doing so, why would I continue doing that?
Yeah.
Why would I bring down my mental health working for something that I feel like isn't going to get me anywhere? Now, that's not to say that if I did that for the company I work for, I wouldn't get anywhere.
Yeah.
That's just to say I have other priorities outside of work. I have a family, I
Yeah.
have content, I have my own mental health and my own stress and my own things I have to deal with. I don't want to have to deal with an organization's stress 24 hours a day. I
No.
just don't.
No, I completely agree. I mean, for me, for anyone who knows me and watched the shows before, I like you, brutally honest about where I've come from, brutally honest about
Yeah.
what's happened. And mental health's been a problem for me in the past, because I didn't rest and because I put myself under all that pressure. But more importantly, it was the word you mentioned earlier, which was success. And where I went wrong, which is where I think most of our culture is going wrong at the moment, is the definition of success. Because
Oh, yeah.
we spend our whole life from junior school wanting to get to high school, to get into college, to get in your first car, to get in your first job, to get in your first promotion. It's always that next, 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 next,
Mhm.
next. And if there's one brutal truth that I've learned over the last 4 or 5 years, is that success isn't a destination. It's up here every day. And it's got to be your idea of success, Derek, right? Because you said it
Well,
earlier, not living for someone else's.
and that's the big thing, is what do you define as success? So
Yeah.
I've got a new episode coming out this week on Walk With Me talking about failure. Don't worry, it'll be a good one. You're going to have to listen to find out. But it's going to talk about success at the same time, because we all see success different. But let me ask you a question. This is why I don't like the fact of people getting into a job just to chase money, because then you will never reach your goal. You will
No.
never see yourself as successful. I have a point at which I will find myself financially successful. And that is when I get to a point where I no longer have to tell my kids no, they can't have or do something because of money. That is when I will find financial success. That means it doesn't mean I'm not successful now. It doesn't mean I don't see success in some of the things I've done in my life and my career. But financially, I'll be set when I no longer have to tell my kids no because of money. I could
Do you,
say no, they didn't earn it,
do
or
you know what mine
no,
is?
I ain't got the time, but not because of money. That will never be an excuse of mine. I don't want it to be. And right
Mine is
now,
different, right, Derek?
yeah,
Mine's different. My idea of success is convincing my children they don't want anything in the first place.
I mean, that'd be great too. I haven't been able to manage that one. I don't think I will.
It's
Uh,
never going to happen. It's a
nah, nah.
pipe dream. That is.
My youngest was coming up to me today, like, "Hey, I want this some toy on YouTube that he was looking at," and I'm like, no, like you have enough, and I'm tired of you breaking things. Go away.
Yeah.
Like, go.
Well,
I don't want to. I don't
we
want to
have that
hear
problem in our
about
house.
what you want every 5 minutes. No, go.
I mean,
I know what you want.
I've ruined some of my children. So we had too much money, and I was a bit vulgar with it a few years back. And
Oh yeah.
when my three eldest boys were growing up, they had everything, and you can see that. And as much as they've learned through my failures and us losing everything and starting again, as much as they've learned the value of money now, you look at them compared to my three youngest, who are 6 and 4 year old twins,
Yeah.
and they never say I want, because they've never had it. And
And that's big because
massive.
that's
Yeah.
what I try to get across, not only to myself. I am the type of person that puts everybody else first. All right, whether it's and it's funny too, and I'm going to talk about this real quick because it's important to me. I very much promote and do things for everybody else before myself. I always have, even since I started creating content and doing things, whether it be my wife, my kids. I will buy. It took till earlier this year for me to build my computer for me that I needed. But my son had one, I think last year, the year before. I built his.
Yeah.
My other kids get laptops. My wife, anytime her computer gets too slow to play The Sims, I buy her another laptop. I do all these things, and you want to know what my laptop is? It's like a $400 laptop that I bought at Walmart. What's
Yeah.
my wife get? About an $11 or $1,200 laptop that I was just like, you know what? I'll just go get it for her for Christmas. It's okay. Not me. And the same goes for my content. I can't tell you how many times I will sit out here and I will promote everybody else. If I
Yeah.
see somebody puts out a new video, a new podcast, a new show, or they're like, hey, I need 5 more hours for my channel. If I'm not the one watching it, I'll make sure somebody sees it that does it.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure that message gets out there. And so this is where priorities come in line, because as much as I want to get to that monetization, as much as I want
Ooh.
to get to the point where I am looked at as, somebody watches my show and I never have to worry about hours or views ever again. I don't promote myself like that. And I don't think I ever will. Yeah, I'll go through
No.
stints where I'm like, hey, I really want to push this show. But it's funny because the biggest things I push are always about somebody else. It's
Yeah.
Security Happy Hour with like the Cyber Queens or
Yeah.
Dr. Nicole Flores or Alex Plog, who, when we discussed ADHD and changing careers, all these things, I don't promote it for my content. I promote it for the people that are on it. And so their
100%.
message can get heard. So I don't. It's just how I've been. I'll promote Hacker Valley Media because they're amazing. I love Chris Cochran and Ronald Eddings and their spouses. They do amazing things for the community, and I'm in their Discord and I'm always joking around with them because I'm just like, one day I'll hit that level. One day I'll get there. But like, I promote them. I promote KevTech, and it's because I care about their message and what they're doing for the community.
Yeah.
And that is where my self-care sucks, because I don't care about what happens to me. I don't
I
care
think the
about what I'm
beauty of
going
that,
through.
though, Derek, and this is what I've found in the short time I've behaved like that. So I was an arrogant prick for a long time who thought about
I
himself.
believe we discussed that when you were
Yeah.
on Security Happy Hour, which, by the way,
Yeah.
after this show, go over and check out Security Happy Hour with Simon. It was an amazing episode. I can't remember when it was, so you'll have to go find it. Because
Yeah, I
I've
think
never
I think
done
it was maybe late last year, and I think for me the valuable lesson I've learned after being very self-centered and ego-driven for a long time was that helping other people makes you feel a lot happier than buying anything for yourself. And going back to your wife
Yeah.
having a better laptop, your kids having better stuff. My 17-year-old's got this amazing like crypto mining gaming PC in his bedroom, right? And I didn't have a graphics card for my laptop for 3 months, but that's because
Yeah.
seeing them happier is more of a reward. And that's my other favorite statement: is there's no such thing as altruism. I do things to help other
Nope.
people for very selfish reasons. Actually, Derek, different to you, I do it
And
because it makes me feel good.
but we talk about that too. Is it
Yeah,
does? I feel better helping somebody else.
yeah,
If I'm doing something for me, I don't necessarily feel good about it. And people have talked about that. They're like, well, how do you, tell people to like buy your merchandise or do buy me a coffee or any of these? I'm like, honestly, because I'm going broke and I need money. Like, and I'd rather not them just give to me because I'm broke. I'd rather them do it because they enjoy what I do.
yeah.
But that I feel bad about sometimes. But promoting people, no, that actually makes me feel good. I could sit here all day and not put out a single bit of like a tweet about myself and retweet things from like KevTech
Yeah.
or Hacker Valley Media or yourself or, all these podcasts that I've been listening to lately. Like, I could do all that and not feel bad at all. I'd feel great about myself. I'm like, hey, at least they're getting listened to and people are tuning in.
Yeah.
But the moment I sit there and I'm like, shit, I'm like negative in all my accounts. I really need money. All right, let's start,
I've been there, Derek. Yeah.
let's start sending out like, hey, can someone donate,
Help!
please? Like, do you love what I do? And I'll never put out there like, hey, I'm broke. What I'll do is, hey, if you love what I do and enjoy my content, please feel free. If not, just share the videos,
Right,
whatever.
so
Like,
let's just clarify this for the audience. If you ever see Derek put a post out saying if you enjoy what I
means I'm
do, do
broke.
him a favour, give him some money. But while
Means
we're
I'm
on
broke.
that, we've gone over time, so I want to do a couple of things. I can promote you, Derek. So again, everyone in the audience, there's the link to Cyber Warrior Studios. Check out all of the interviews on there. It is absolutely awesome and well worth a look. And again, if anyone wants to be a guest on this show, on the Seiso experience, or how to hire in cybersecurity, please do reach out. And again, while we're on the sponsors thing, we're looking for sponsors for a couple of shows at the moment for this one, which Cyber Pathway, and also how to hire in cybersecurity. So if you've got a firm that you want to promote or a service, get in touch. There will be, I suppose I should be honest about this. We won't let anyone sponsor it. And it's back to the whole point of this show in that the sponsor's got to be worthwhile. So if I'm discounting anyone out there, sorry, but it's got to be a decent product for our viewers as well. So I've just cut off my nose to spite my face on any sponsorship opportunities there, Derek. And
There you go.
I'll play you out with the new intro that we've got for the CISO experience for the only reason that I put it together myself and I quite like it. If I can find it, that is. Yeah, I think it's here. And Derek, any last words for everyone before we go?
Hey, before I go, look, just make sure that you are looking and checking out all of these amazing people out there. Like I said, I've mentioned KevTech several times because he's in the chat. I know he's watching, and I know the content he puts out.
Let's drop him in.
The bearded IT dad, Big Bald Azure guy, Eric Bellardo, and Raices Cyber. If you haven't checked out Raices Cyber, please go do so. RaicesCyber.org. It's an amazing organization. Whole Cyber Human Initiative or Whole Human Cyber Initiative. All these different people. Please go do so. And hey, last but not least, if you do want some amazing merchandise, please head to cyberwarriorstudios.com and take a look.
I haven't put the web link up. Let me just do that. Let's do that quickly. Hold on. So we are back tomorrow night, I believe, with 2 episodes of How to Hire in Cybersecurity. I can't tell you who it is because I haven't got the screen up, but I think we've got Ryan Pullen from, let me get this right, Stripe OLT, talking about how to hire, and Shahika Bennett is coming on to talk about the same thing. I'm just going to get your website up. Here is the shop for Cyber Warrior Studios. I'm going to have a browse on here after the show to see what new swag I can get. I'm actually working my way through all of my free swag from InfoSec and RSA at the moment. So I'm
Nice.
running out of t-shirts now. I'm looking for some socks. So if you got some socks,
that my Shopify ain't gonna work.
Oh, is it not? Who got another one? Drop it in the private chat and then I'll drop it in.
Yeah, just cyberwarriorstudios.com. Just head there. Everything's there.
Got it.
Right, I'm a one-stop shop. What do you want? Merchandise, support, find all of the different shows that I do. Like, they're all there. Everything's there.
Awesome. Derek, thank you so much. Everyone, amazing as ever. See you all soon.
Have later.
Yeah.